Hi, welcome back to my garden. It does seem like a long time since the last film. I know I made one a few weeks ago, but that was after a long time. And if truth be told, my sort of daily routine or weekly structure pretty much fell apart the last 2 months for very good reasons. It started to erode somewhat when I did an exhibition up the road, and then we had the World Cup, the first of a series of visitors to Paripuera, and that pretty much carried on a sort of revolving door of people coming and going until this Wednesday. Rita and I finally breathed a collective sigh, not of relief because it's been wonderful, but a sort of take a deep breath. For Rita more so than me, because I've had 2 months of visits and museum exhibitions and wonderful stuff. And Rita's had all these visits, and on top of that has been the holiday season for her is an incredibly busy time because as a dressmaker, it's party season, so she's busy making graduation and wedding dresses. So she's been very, very busy. But this week we finally could take a deep breath. And I thought, well, I can't leave it till next week. I need to get back into the habit of making a weekly garden chat video. And I've sort of found immediately that it's pretty much like it was a few months ago. The insects are still here bothering me. The wind's blowing through the trees. And this morning I was left trying to think of something to say. And it struck me that it was a bit like being an English teacher maybe in a primary school after the summer holidays. What do you do? And so I thought I'd fall back on a gambit of theirs, In those English classes, I don't know about yours, but this was certainly true over the years for me. It was the inevitable write an essay on your summer holidays topic. And of course, it was a perfectly reasonable topic, but not very original. So I thought, well, perhaps though I can use that as a cue for this particular start of vlogging. And then we had a wave of 3 visits, 2 individual visits and a big group of family folk. So I thought, well, that's 3 visits, that's 3 films, and I'd think of something to do with each of them that would somehow be suitable for whatever it is I'm doing in these films. And so we'll kick off with the visit of Elizabeth Morehouse, my dear friend from St. Paul's days in Sao Paulo. We hadn't seen Elizabeth, well, I might have seen her once or twice on one of my visits to Sao Paulo in the last few years. But as a couple, we hadn't seen Elizabeth since 2012, when we took a long, lazy bus trip back from Fortaleza to Sao Paulo via the whole of the Brazilian coast. A string of bus journeys spread out over a few weeks where we kind of got to know the country a little bit better. And along the way we stopped and visited Elizabeth. At that time it was a holiday home. Her late husband Chris had retired, but she was still working. Now she's finally decided that enough's enough. Time to give teaching a miss and just spend time, enjoying herself. But I think like so many of us, Elizabeth has found an interesting activity to at least keep herself busy during the day. And I haven't asked her permission. I'm not so sure if one should seek permission for these things, but I'm going to publicize her Instagram films a little bit, because Elizabeth makes wonderful little clips showing her journey of learning to juggle. And that seemed somehow, it conjured up a very interesting metaphor for me of what it's like facing, the new year. And let me unpick that a little bit. So, first of all, learning to juggle, and that in itself is, well, I think quite a challenge. Not something I was ever able to do, although, as I know people who do juggle, and before making this film, there's another interesting little connection. Serendipitous is fortuitous, that's also the wrong word. Out of the blue sort of connection, because Monday was the 4th anniversary of my friend Mike's tragic passing in a car accident. And Mike was a juggler. And indeed, he has juggling clubs and balls in his house. And there we are, learning to juggle. Not something I've ever been keen to do, but it is something I read about. Not easy to do, but apparently, if you just try and juggle, it's a sort of well-nigh impossible thing to do, but a very good way, a sort of interesting approach to learning to juggle is to think of it not as juggling, but to think of it as a sort of one thing, but to think of it as 3 separate actions. Practice each of those separate actions on their own until they become part of your muscle memory, and then try and integrate the 3 actions rather than try to juggle, let's say, 3 balls. Taking it as a very simple form of juggling. I don't know if you begin with 1, or 2, or 3, but let us imagine juggling with 3 balls. But if you broke that down, one action is to pass a ball from, say, your left hand to your right hand, so toss it over. Then the second action would be to toss the ball up in the air with your right hand, and then catch it with your left hand. You could, of course, should, maybe a better place to start would be tossing the ball in the air, catching it, and then passing it back. You can see I haven't really rehearsed this speech any more than I've rehearsed juggling. But there we are. It's the first sort of talk from the new year. Maybe, I think the first. Perhaps I did one just before, or maybe one just after the new year kicked off. I can't remember when it was. Anyway, I'm rambling. Getting back in the groove inevitably will involve a little bit of rambling. So that's kind of how you learn to juggle. You break things down into these components, according to the book that was talking about juggling. I think is more in a sort of meta sense. I don't think I was reading a book on learning to juggle. I was reading a book on learning to learn something, and they were using juggling as a good example. And Elizabeth actually, has not, I'm not going to say mastered juggling, because no one masters juggling any more than one masters guitar or masters sculpture or any sort of art form. I've spoken about this as, and if you followed my videos, you know this is something I believe. It's the road to mastery is an endless road. So I'm not going to say that, but certainly I would say my friend Elizabeth knows how to juggle. And of course, then comes the matter of adaptation. You know how to juggle, but then you perhaps move from balls to clubs, and you have to begin all over again. I think my very forced metaphor that struck me when I was trying to work out what it is I wanted to say about in this video about this year that is about to unfold is that it is a bit like that. I feel that way. This is going to be a fantastic year because I think every year is fantastic, and we must be grateful and revel in the life we have and everything that comes our way, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And actually, there's another connection sort of that floated in this week, because I say I haven't been making films, but I have been reposting my films on YouTube. And another friend of mine from St. Paul's Days, Erica, sent me a message saying, did I mind if she reposted it, because she thought the content was right on the money, so to speak, for her and what she was thinking about that week, which praise or validation comes no higher than that for me, for what I'm trying to do. If a friend says they not only liked your film, but they'd like to share it because it was useful to them and might be useful to other people that they know and I don't, well, that is wonderful indeed. And that film was all about one of my heroes, Thich Nhat Hanh, the late Vietnamese Zen monk, and his idea that one must, it was about dishwashing, and one must do it mindfully and in fact learn to love washing the dishes, and one must be totally in the moment. And that's a sort of juggling kind of idea, not that learning to juggle or I'm not suggesting that is something that's a grind like doing the dishes. But it's not an easy thing to do, learning to do anything. It's learning comes, the territory of learning comes full of frustration, inevitable frustration. And we need to, I guess, be comfortable with that. If we drop a ball or lose the thread, well, we start again and we get back into the cycle, and we take it from there. And if we realize we want to challenge ourselves and try something new, well, we look at what we've been doing and we build on it. And I think that's pretty much how I kind of feel at the start of this year. I feel like things have kind of unraveled, and yet when I look out and over what might happen, I know I'm in a good position. I have a lot of skills in place to tackle this new year, and I suspect if you do that, you will come to a similar conclusion. But it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a bit of a struggle, and forcing things a bit of a juggle, keeping the plates spinning, and starting again when we drop a ball, and keeping going. Boy, I don't know how this video is going to sound when I give it a listen again. I'm not going to edit it, and I'm not going to make it again. Actually, if I have no idea if this makes sense or if this is just a dreadful wordy mess of a forced metaphor extended well beyond its sell-by date or any useful purpose. I'm not sure, but I need to get started. I need to get this out there. So forgive me, and if you're feeling generous, leave a nice comment, because something that encourages because I think we all need a little bit of encouragement at the beginning of the year when we try and get things back moving again, when we try and build up momentum, and when the task seems like an enormous mountain to climb, and the peaks are very, very far away. I don't say that out of a spirit of sort of a point of being depressing. It's just how things are. You start and it's hard and you need to build up momentum. So be nice and leave a comment. Go on. As always, I trust your lives are filled with joy, and until next week, from sunny Brazil, ciao.